It's finally here. Oh shit. Actually, I think this one might have batteries in it. Don't throw batteries. This is what they send it in? Okay.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom.
It's called Being Charming. Okay? It has character.
There's character, alright?
I wrote, help. I just need you to tell me that this doesn't look dumb.
Does not look dumb.
I think it looks dumb.
Pow.
This is it. This is what I was waiting for, that sunk to the bottom of the ocean when that container ship crashed. That horrible tragedy.
In my thoughts and in my dreams, they're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves and men, and elves, come close your eyes. You can see.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm glad I didn't take several months to make a new video. In my defense, I got pretty sick, so here's actually some footage of that.
Oh, look at the neighbors. I'm gonna fit in here.
This is the worst case
Not uploading.
I've ever seen.
We have no idea how contagious this strain is. Now look.
Dash of love to make it nice. And
Kill
you
me.
got too many cooks, too many cooks, too many cooks.
Kill me!
No, all joking aside though, I was actually pretty seriously ill. There was this really hilarious thing where when I would stand up, there was something wrong with my inner ear, and it would make it like the floor was doing one of those. Here I am. I'm back. And we actually have, well, it's what an amateur might call a set. So it's a set. That was a joke. That was certainly, wow. Today, what I'm here to talk about is short-lived Dungeons & Dragons characters. Sometimes that character can last one campaign, and then you move on to something else. Sometimes they only last like one story arc, which is understandable, especially if the character feels like it's done and ready with. Sometimes characters can last just a few sessions if the person's gotta, move out to another state or something. Who would ever do that, though? Sometimes they last an hour, and that's what we're here to talk about today. My good friend Chance, you might remember from pretty much every video that's on this channel, honestly.
And Hitler said, "Here's my last fuck you."
He was playing in one of my games. He was playing a monk named Devlin. I think it was Devlin. We talked about it a little bit before I started filming this. Pretty sure his name is Devlin. This is a character that he wrote to take back his position in the game. He had to leave this D&D campaign for an extended period of time. When he came back, he didn't want to play the character that he was playing before, so he decided to roll up a monk instead. The composition of the party had switched, and he was just looking to try something new, which I can't blame him for, so he decides to roll up a monk. Important note about DMing Dungeons & Dragons. Make sure, when you are describing something, that you are using the appropriate terms, and make sure that everyone understands what you mean when you say something. That's pretty important as it pertains to this story. In the context of this game, the monk, Devlin, has arrived in town. I don't remember what the group was doing in town, but they had just finished up a series of quests, and they were getting ready to move to the next area. So on the road leading to this town, as they're on their way out, he's on his way in. They meet this monk, right? He introduces himself. They start getting along just fine. I believe someone forgot something in town, and they said, "Hey, I need to go back just for a minute. Do you guys mind waiting while I finish up this last little side quest before we move on to the next area?" And everybody was relatively okay. They said, yeah, that's fine. We'll just go hang out in the bar or something like that. So they take their new friend, their new pal, Devlin, to this bar, and they start drinking. They start having a good time. They're hanging out with him. That's also important. Pretty much from the start, they're treating this guy like a friend, which is what you should do if your friend is coming back into the D&D game. You shouldn't approach their character and say, well, who are you? I'm very suspicious of someone like you. There's no reason to do that. Just, even if it's a little bit gamey, for the purposes of flow and pacing, you should probably just be like, wow, fellow adventurer, you should join our adventuring party, and then move on, right? It's easy, it's simple, it's a little gamey, but I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're here to play. So he's hanging out. He's making friends with the people in the group. I believe we had a paladin for sure. That's going to come into play later. Regardless of the classes, he's hanging out with them. He's making friends, especially with the paladin. They're getting pretty close. As the last person in the group is finishing up his side quest, he comes back to the bar. He hears a ruckus outside. There's someone being kidnapped by your classic, symbol on the face, black robes, obvious cultist that could not be screaming louder. I am literally evil. You should stop me now. You need to stop me now. He goes into the bar. He gets his friends because he doesn't want to handle this situation alone. They come out of the bar and they see that the individual in question has picked up somebody over their shoulder and is running out of town with them. Now, everybody in this group has a base speed of 30, except their new friend, the monk. Monks have a higher base speed than the other classes. This is important because it allows you to outpace people. If someone has a base speed of 30 and they're running, that makes it 60. And if they're sprinting, I believe it's triple or quadruple, right? Now, what's important is that this guy has like a blink ring or something. So every time he's done with his movement, he takes his action, which is to blink forward another little bit of distance. This chase was designed to be lost. This was the moment in the movie where the bad guy gets away and they go, oh man, we have to find out where they went. We have to find out why he took that individual person, right? I did not plan for a monk to be involved in this, who has such a high rate of speed. I believe he may have also had boots of speed or something, so he was incredibly fast. He was breaking the sound barrier. At this point, we have been playing for about 45 or 50 minutes. Unbeknownst to Chance, and certainly unbeknownst to Devlin, the timer is almost up on this man's life. Now, when he is chasing this cultist, the cultist is running towards where his friend is. And his friend is off at the start of the tree line just outside of town, and he has prepared a ritual spell. I believe they passed some knowledge arcana checks, or arcana if you want to be wrong.
This word is pronounced as arcana.
Stop! Fucking stop!
They see on the ground this glowing symbol that obviously just needs one last little tick of chalk and then it will activate, and they identify it as a teleportation ritual spell. This is so when the other person gets into it, they can just complete it immediately and off they go. Even though normally spells are faster, as you can just, with something like this, it makes sense. Ritual spells are spells that need a lot of preparation and they need a lot of time in order to trigger. With a teleportation spell of this nature, it allows you to teleport basically instantly and not be followed, since the ritual will be consumed and there will be no trace of where you were, unless someone sees you or does something else. So what ends up happening is the cultist is currently being outpaced by the monk. He has a little bit of a head start, but not enough. So he turns his head, turns his gaze, he sees the monk behind him, so he throws his hostage into the ritual circle and attempts to complete his journey, as it were, to this ritual circle. Now, I described what this ritual circle looked like, but obviously in hindsight, Chance did not know how large the thing was. I think he was assuming it was a singular person circle. It was not, it was considerably larger. So Devlin the monk decides one last ditch effort to try to stop this guy, and he goes for a running grapple. I don't remember the exact rules on this. We may not have been playing it correctly, but this was an awfully long time ago, so I was like a child, runs down the field, he leaps into the air, and he does, a Goldberg spear directly into this guy. They go a pretty decent amount of distance. I have him roll his grapple checks, and he carries the guy with his momentum directly into the ritual circle, which is then completed, and they're gone. Flash of light. The problem is that, like I said, this sequence was designed for the person to get away. This is the bad guy's getaway sequence. Unfortunately, one of the party members has also gotten away with them. Now, I have everything, at least the way that I used to run Dungeons and Dragons, or Pathfinder, or whatever tabletop RPG we're playing at the time. The way that I used to run it is everything would be written down in a book. I would have a notebook with all of the notes. I would have lists of names. I would have locations, and I would have, for these elements, I would say, X person goes Y place. And the reason I did that is, if the party was able to thwart the bad guys in some way, I wanted them to be properly compensated with, okay, you found out where their base is because you're here now. Unfortunately, only one of them managed to get into this circle. So the two cultists and their hostage and Devlin the monk teleport with the ritual spell directly into the occult base, which is quite far away. And the party is in no position to follow them. They do not have any information. They do not have any leads. The only thing that they know is that there is a big burn mark outside where a ritual spell was just completed, and they saw their monk disappear. Normally, this is the kind of thing where I would suggest, if someone asked me online, I might suggest just saying, okay, this did not go the way that we expected it to go. This is obviously going to cause problems, and I don't want to write off your character entirely over something that was clearly a miscommunication. However, Chance decided that this was actually fantastic motivation for this character to remain an NPC in the game. Despite how much fun he might find playing a monk, he decided that it was his fault, that he misunderstood or miscalculated or whatever you want to call it, and he decided to let Devlin stay captured and roll up a new character, which is, I don't think anything like that has happened since then, and if it has, it's certainly not been that kind of response to a thing like that happening. So we had a conversation about it, like in another room or something, and I asked him, look, do you want me to retcon what just happened? Because I'm okay with that. We can just say, like, oh, we go back to a previous save, like an auto save or something. And he said, no, it's fine. Here's his sheet. You can have him as an NPC, do what you want. He's effective. I mean, he has to be written out of the game if we're going to continue this, because there's no way that I'm going to run a session of D&D for these three, and then a session of D&D for just you, twice a week, and then eventually get back together. It just doesn't make any sense. He decides he's just going to roll up a new character, and I said, okay, that's fine. I will take Devlin. We talked about a couple of story options and things for him. And based on what the group did after this interaction was where the main meat of the story really comes into play, because one of the people, like I said, that paladin is the person that, while he was only there for an hour in real time, the paladin is the one that he was closest to. They were hanging out. They were the ones drinking. They were the bar buddies. After this occurred, the party continued on their way, finding no leads, and they went on and they did, the main story quest, the side quests, etc., etc. I had a very gamey way of writing Dungeons and Dragons back then. It's less so like that now, but there's still certain elements where it's like, we're playing a game. So they've been playing for, I think, another 6 months in real time after that happened. And they still had no leads. After like a month, they had no leads of where Devlin was or what this cult was. So they decided that they were just going to stop directly looking into that and see if they could find some other, happenings elsewhere. And maybe eventually it would lead them back there, maybe not. We only knew him for an hour. That was something that they legitimately said. So what Chance and I talked about regarding Devlin is I said that he was probably being tortured mentally, physically, etc. He was probably being shown with like a scrying spell or something, the group, not searching for him anymore. They've just completely given up on him. So I asked him if it would be okay if I used him as a villain, and he said, oh yeah, I would love that. That's fantastic. So that's exactly what I was going to do. What was going to happen was I had this huge session planned where everything that had happened up until this point was going to sort of converge on this one city. And in one session, we were going to get payoffs for 6 or 7 different storylines that I had been laying seeds for who knows how long. Plus this extra bit with Devlin. He's now like essentially a tortured soul minion of the bad guys that had caused his capture to begin with. And he would have lost, I talked to Chance about this, and he would have lost an arm at this point. And he instead had this almost magical prosthetic of this like living wood that functioned just like an arm. But monks get things like Sundering Strike and stuff where they can damage an opponent's weapon. And instead of that, he could, you know, for flavor effectively, when someone swung their weapon at him, he could grab it in the air with his living wood arm and like break it into pieces. And so we had this whole reveal set up where all of these things were going to be happening all at once, and the paladin was going to be outside and going through, you know, her story arc, and then Devlin was going to show up and she was going to say, you know, I don't know what the plan was, that she was going to, you know, recognize Devlin and say, oh, it's Devlin, my friend, where, you know, you're here, where have you been, etc., etc. And they would have fought after that, and she would have been really confused, and then Devlin gets to say his final line, all of this time, all this build-up of this group that he initially put his faith in, despite having some apprehension about joining a group of adventurers. He didn't know them for very long, but they were the closest thing that he had to friends personally, his entire, you know, life since leaving his temple. And now after all this time in captivity and all this, and seeing these people that he thought were going to be great companions, and a paladin in front of him, someone who was supposed to be a warrior of virtue, who just completely abandoned the search, gave up, and he was gonna look her in the eye right before he broke that sword that she had and say, "Did you even look for me?" It was gonna be a great, powerful moment with this, you know, great setup for a fantastic, like a great villainous second in command, essentially. Devlin would have risen up through the ranks of the villainous hierarchy pretty quickly, and he would have been the penultimate fight. I think that would have been a fantastic story. Unfortunately, the player playing our paladin, that was hard to say. The player playing our paladin decided to quit the game the day of that session, like 2 hours before we were supposed to play. So I had to rewrite everything, and it was really weird and a little awkward. We ended up getting some good story out of it later. It ended up being a good session in retrospect, but compared to what we could have had, it was a shame. Which I guess is fair, considering Devlin's story started with all this potential as a monk player character, and was dashed against the rocks of a 60-minute timer. And I had a great session planned with all the potential in the world, and it was dashed against the rocks of, I don't want to play this game anymore. I guess the moral of the story is, I don't know if there is a moral. What do you think? It's a fucking frog statue, he can't talk.